Good afternoon. My name is Walter Lopez. Thank you to join us for this webinar about Nutriscore. So about practical question. If you want to ask question, please ask the chat part on this page on the right, and we will try to reply them at the end of talk. Moreover, the presentation will be sent to you after the event. And last point, all the webinar is being recorded. So just to introduce our company, so Lima Ingredient is a French company where 3,015 employees work all around Europe, in France, in Netherlands, in UK, and in Germany. Our company belongs to Lima Farmer Cooperative based in the center of France. Each year, you process more than 100,000 tons of grain in 7 different production sites. And we relied on full trust grain chain production in order to create a tasty, healthy and nutritional experience. We develop and produce natural ingredients with distinct functionality. So about general information about Nutriscore. So Nutriscore, the objective of Nutriscore, in order to make a nutritional labeling more visible and easy to understand to the customers, a logo can be printed on the pre-packed food. Design in French Nutritional and Health Program, PNNS in French, Nutriscore is coming slowly on the stores. Easy to understand because it's made like a traffic, like a color, and the color code like a school grade. It means when you have a A, is a good nutrition, and at the opposite, if you have a E in a red color, is bad. It means that the product is not good for the nutrition. So it's visible because we put this logo on the packaging, and of course, about if the nutritional table is compulsory, is not the case for Nutriscore because it is a voluntary approach for each company. So the history of Nutriscore is long. It was born in France after many difficulties. For example, a law introduced the principle of Nutriscore in order to have a label more clearer and more visible, in order to facilitate information for the customers. In July 2016, you have a final comparative study show the superiority of Nutriscore label in order to improve the information for the customers, compared to 4 other existing nutritional labeling from US, UK, etc. So in October of the same year, Nutriscore was definitively chosen in France. Since that date, many European countries are officially adopt this label: Belgium, Germany, the Netherlands, Spain. Other countries follow with the presence of international company like Nestlé or Danone in Austria, Portugal, Slovenia or Switzerland. You have an exception in Europe is Italy because they have their own labeling. And of course, the UK with traffic light. So today there is a discussion in Brussels about Nutriscore to be adopted for all the European Union. in complementary of a national health and nutritional program in France, and the advice such eating 5 fruit and vegetable per day, or limited, for example, the sweet things. Nutriscore help to well shopping in order to choose between a product in the same shelf. For example, we take an example in a ready meal. You can find a Nutri-Score from A to E, so the customers can choose today the best one for the nutritional aspect. The second example is about the comparison of the quality of for same products, but with a different brand. For example, in ham in supermarket can be classified from B to C, and today depending of recipe and ingredients. So the customers can choose the best things for nutrition. For the agri-food industry, which products are concerned by this logo, except a few products like herbs, tea, coffee, oil, all the pre-packed foods and drinks are concerned by Nutri-Score. Just you have an exception for the no pre-packed food like fruit, vegetable, fresh fish, or alcohol. Yes, I already say that. Today, Nutri-Score is not compulsory. It means that the food company and distributor need to make action in order to adopt this logo. It's interesting to note that today in some application for the mobile, they already use the Nutri-Score, but sometimes you have this application is not so. I don't have all the information. It means that sometimes the content of fibers or the percentage of fruit and vegetable are not ready in this application. So it means that we have some difficulty to have the right information. So in France today, more than 240 company and distributor are already engaged in Nutri-Score. And we have to underline that all the French food distributor like Auchan, Carrefour, Casino, Intermarché, Leclerc, and Système U use a Nutri-Score in the private label produced by this distributor. And the major food company like Danone, Bonduelle, McCain, Fleury-Michon, Findus, Nestlé, Panzani, and Kellogg's are already engaged in this logo. So now I let Sophie take over the calculation of the Nutri-Score and the solution that Lima Ingredient can provide you in order to improve the nutritional profile. Do not hesitate to ask your question in the chat part. We will answer them at the end.
Thank you, Walter. So Nutri-Score, how does it work? So what is Nutri-Score? To classify each food product, international research teams develop a scoring that considers for 100 grams of finished products, the content of nutrients and food to promote. It means fibers, protein, fruits, and vegetables. And nutrients to limits. It means energy, saturated fatty acids, sugar, and salt. So to consider specificities of certain food families such as butter, oil, cheese, drinks, the calculation method was adapted for this specific product. Concerning additive and pesticides, actually in Nutri-Score calculation, only nutritional aspects are considered, so it doesn't consider other dimensions as additive and pesticides. Actually, any score takes in account nutritional plus additive plus pesticides. So organic logo allow to identify the product issue from organic agriculture. It can be used as a complement of the Nutri-Score to avoid pesticides. And additives are generally listed on ingredient labeling. So by precaution, advices are to favorize foods without additive or with an ingredient list as short as it could be. So how to calculate? Nutri-Score is based on a unique calculation method, global to European engaged countries, which contain negative component N and positive component P. So negative components are energy, saturated fatty acid, sugar content, and sodium rate. These components are blamed in heart disease and obesity. And the positive components are fibers, proteins, and the content of fruit, vegetables, pulses, and nuts. And these one are classified as good food. So this food allow a better gut with a better absorption of nutrients like vitamins and minerals, and participate to bones and muscle development and cellular renewal. So as you can see, we got two tables, the negative point and the positive points. And when you do the calculation, the total negative point minus the total positive points, you obtain a score limit that you can see on the final table with the color. And depending the score, you can reach a certain color. Okay, so from green to red. So how to calculate Nutri-Score? You need to take into account the INCO rules to calculate nutritional value correctly. To watch out running rules depending nature of nutrients and nature of nutrients and its quantity, sorry. The Nutri-Score rules, so you need to know how to calculate the fruit and vegetable depending the type. It means, for example, if it's a concentrate, you need to add 2 times the percentage of the fruit or the vegetables. And if it's a juice, you need to add just 1 time the percentage. And if it's dry foods, again, you need to double the percentage. So there's several rules you can follow up to calculate the Nutri-Score. Considering the proteins part or not, depending the negative score. It means if the negative score is over 11, you will be able or not to consider the protein parts in your Nutri-Score. And of course, you need to update frequently the calculation table, as you have to know that there is already in 2 years 19 version of this calculation table. So Nutri-Score is actually still in development, and as Walter said, there is a discussion actually in Brussels, so it might change again. So will it be the choice of European regulatory? We still don't know, but it looks like they are going in this direction, maybe by changing some rules. So will it be still there in a few years or another system? We still don't know. Nutri-Score is actually used through consumer application like Open Food Facts, Yuka, Scanit, Yaqua Dedans, ScanUp, and SIGA. So concerning industrial, it means they need to inform correctly the labeling with all the data that could improve the Nutri-Score, as it is a strategic tool for positioning and improving product on the market facing your competitors. So now the advice to improve the Nutri-Score. So some solution from Lima Grain. So 2 ways to improve the Nutri-Score. First is adding the positive points. So adding fibers using our range. We've got maize and oat fibers, some wheat brands, whole grain flours such as whole wheat, whole maize, whole rye, whole barley, whole oat, some seeds such as sunflower, lean, poppy, and sesame seeds. You can add also protein using our range with the products such as toasted broken chickpea or red lentil, or waste of pulse range like faba bean, red bean, yellow lentil, red lentil, chickpea, and green pea. These ones are functional flours. Some germs such as the wheat germ or Nutricorn, which is a toasted maize germ, and seeds such as sunflower, lean, and poppy. You can see on the table the rate of fibers and protein for each. We can also replace the puffed rice. Sorry, this one is for the second. What we can see that we highlight on the table actually is that you can have a nice combination with some product, like for example the Nutricorn, which is the toasted maize germ. You have 20% of fibers and 18% of proteins, so this is quite equilibrated between the proteins and the fibers. You've got also in the pulses the waste of red bean, which is a functional flour. Again, you got about 21.4 and 21.2% of fibers and proteins. In another hand, if you look at the maximum, of course, you've got gluten for the wheat. You've got 82% of proteins. And if you look at the fibers, of course, it will be the Sofaban maize or Sofaban oat, where you've got between 75 and 89% of fibers. So you can also, by adding positive points, replacing, for example, a puffed rice in a granola bar with our Presco range. Presco range are puffed cereals. So we got some example on this table. So we got Presco millet, Presco quinoa, Presco sorghum, Presco malted rye. And if we look at the Rice Krispie, we got only 1% of fiber and in protein 6%. And if you replace that by Presco quinoa, for example, you've got the double of proteins, 13.8%, and 6 times the rate of fiber. So this is quite interesting. Same thing with the malted rye, you've got 11 times the rate of fibers, and still you've got approximately the same protein rate. And again, in a granola bar, if you look at the oat flake that you generally put in granola bar, you can replace part of this oat flake by Nutricorn, and you can see that you can improve your fiber rates because you go from 9 to 20%, and also your protein rates from 12.5 to 18%. A second way to reduce is to reduce the negative points, in the recipe, such as saturated fat, sugar, and salt. So the first one is reducing fat. In some application, you can use waxy wheat or rice to replace saturated fat by carbohydrate, by functional flour, actually. So this is the case in this recipe you can see. So this is a recipe where we reduce the butter, which is, sorry, this is not the recipe. It's just a table with a different fat, sorry. So you can see that if we replace the butter, which is a high saturated fat, where there is 57% of saturated fat, by some functional flour like WWWI, where you've got only 0.2% of saturated fat, you of course reduce the negative point because you reduce the saturated fat, but also you reduce the calories, so the energy. So at the same time, you reduce 2 negative points. So this will improve your Nutri-Score. So another solution is reducing sugar with a hydrolyzed flour. This is good because you can reduce actually the simple sugar, but you still have some carbohydrate, so it's not as efficient as if you are using, for example, fibers to reduce sugars. You can also reduce salt with a stop salt and pellets low salt. So stop salt is a technical product to use in a bakery to improve the processability of bread dough if you remove completely the salt from the recipe. And we have also in our range of pellets, some pellets with a very low salt rate. So you can go from a Nutri-Score, which maybe will be at C or D, and you can improve it until B or even A. So this is quite interesting. Another way is also to balance your calories in your recipe. So of course, if you reduce the fat, which is about 9 kilocalories, and also alcohol, if there is some in your recipe, which is 7 kilocalories, you replace that by some carbohydrate or proteins. Of course, it's 4 kilocalories, so it's better. But even if you replace by fibers, which is only 2 kilocalories, is even better. So as you can see, for the fat, you can replace fat by unsaturated fat or carbohydrate plus water. So that means functional flours. The carbohydrate, you can reduce the sugar for glycemic index, replaced by soluble fibers or some polyol. For the proteins, you can balance fat and carbohydrate if you add more proteins. Same thing with fibers, you balance your fat and carbohydrates rate. Alcohol is of course to be avoided, but sometimes you can replace it by flavor without alcohol. And of course, polyols replace sugars. So here we've got a table now where you can see different recipes we've made internally. So in the first table, in the first line of the table, we've got an example with a short crust recipe. So the control is actually calculated with a Nutri-Score of D, means 13 points. And we made a trial with adding some whole grain. So that means we had mainly fibers in the short crust. And in this trial, we could improve the Nutri-Score going to 9 points. It means Nutri-Score of C. We did the same thing with the biscuit recipe, which was a B Nutri-Score, so a calculation of 2 points. And if we had some wheat brands, means again fibers in the biscuits, we could obtain a Nutri-Score of A, means -2. Twiki 318 is actually a pellet, a standard pellet, where we got a score of B. I have to say that the pellets in this case are not fried, and it's the product we are selling from our company, so it's not fried. And if we are taking same formulation and we reduce the salt, so it's called Twiki 380 low salt, we can obtain a Nutri-Score of A with a -2 points. Then a recipe of tortilla chips using the Masa 5119, so a plain full Masa tortilla chips. We got a Nutri-Score of B with 0 points. And if we add some pulses like chickpea and red bean flour, we add proteins, some fibers, and also legumes in Nutri-Score, so 3 different positive points. And we can improve the Nutri-Score, and we have -3 points. That means a Nutri-Score of A, which is very good. Same thing for stackable chips. We go from C to A just by replacing part of the potato with red bean flour. So adding again proteins, fibers, legumes in Nutri-Score. In culinary, we got an example of sauce, Hollandaise sauce, which is using in the formulation the cream and butter, so saturated fat. And we reduce this saturated fat by adding the WWWI, which is a functional flour, waxy wheat, with some water. And we could go through from a Nutri-Score of C to a Nutri-Score of B, so from 6 points to 2 points. So we reduce calories and saturated fat. Another recipe is a pate. Again, we reduce the pork fat by adding another functional flour, which is called Western Wheat 1000R, another waxy white flour. And we go from Nutri-Score C to Nutri-Score B, 5 to 2 points. Adding Nutricorn, which is a toasted maize germ in a polenta, for example, you can go from Nutri-Score of B, 0 point, to A, -4. So that means we add some fibers and protein in the polenta, so better nutritional value. And a last example in bakery with the brioche, using butter in the formulation. If we reduce this butter in the brioche with the functional flour Western Wheat 1000R, we can go from a score of 12, means D, to C with 5 points. So this is again a very good improvement, reducing saturated fat and calories in the Nutri-Score. So thank you for your attention, and if you have any question, please you can ask.
Yes, thank you, Anne-Sophie. Yes, we have a first question it's for you. Is
Yes.
about the salt. Can you explain a little more about stop salt and low salt pellets, please?
Yes. So stop salt is a solution from the bakery part of our company, and it's actually a solution where we blend some enzyme mix with some functional flours, and we use this solution to help in processing the dough, the bread dough. Because actually, when you remove the salt from the bread, you can have some issue of processability. And so by adding this solution, you can remove completely the salt, and you will have the same processability as a control. And for the low salt pellets, it's we remove the part of the sodium in the formulation, and we improve the pellets. I mean, this expansibility after frying, for example, by adding some functional ingredient in the formulation of the pellets. So again, it's not really on the salty taste we are working on, but better on the role of the salt in certain formulation like pellets or bread, which is quite important.
Another question about Sofabran. The question is, Sofabran, is it soluble fibers?
No, it's insoluble fibers. So it's the brands of maize, of oat. So it's insoluble.
Okay, and a last question is for me. A classification of ultra processing food are beginning to exist in Europe or in the world. What do you think about it? So, of course, yes. Today we can see in nutrition this holistic approach coming more and more. What is the holistic approach? Is to stop to speaking about only nutrient like calorie, protein, etc. Like Nutriscore, and to consider the degree of food processing, and to try to keep intact the food matrix. It means the recommendation is to eat more real, is more raw products, more vegetable, and to have a more variety to be more healthy. So of course, yes, we have to need a lot of attention about this new trend, but for my knowledge, we have no logo in place in Europe about that. So yes, we need to conclude because we have 3 minutes of late. So thank you very much for your attention. You will receive in the next day the presentation and the recording of this event. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.